Hi guys, it's Kobe here, and in today's video we are going to see how we will do this in Cinema 4D using Cinema 4D's Target Effector in the Mograph menu. So let me go ahead and pause this and hide it for now, and you can see this is the scene I created, and you are going to create this from scratch right from the beginning, plus adding textures and rendering it using Cinema 4D's default renderer. But before I go ahead, let me actually explain a little bit what the target effector does. So the target effector basically makes clone like look at one a particular target object, right? So for instance, I have these clones here, and I'll create something like a platonic. I'll make it a little bit bigger, and I'll move it up a bit. Now with the clone selected, I can come to Mograph effectors, and I'll choose target effector, and you can see the target mode is set to object target. So right, you have to drag in the object you want to target. So I'll drag in the platonic, and you can see now something is happening to the clones, and the clones are trying to look at the target object, which is the platonic, but it's always using the z axis of the object, and that's why it's looking this way. So now you have to come into a cone. So the axis is very important whenever you are trying to, depending on the shape or the look of your object. So we have to change it to either one of the z. So plus z is fine. So now you can see wherever we move our object, it's trying to look at it. Again, you can also set it to different mode as well. So for instance, look at camera. So whatever I do, it will still be looking at the camera no matter what I do. You see, it will always be pointing at the camera no matter what I do, and this can be useful in some situations when you have like flat images, you want it to look in a certain way. So basically that's what the target effector does. So now let's go ahead and create our scene and see how we did this from scratch, right? So let me go ahead and create a new scene, and I'll create a cylinder. All right, so we are going to use cylinders to create the stick. So I'll make this one, reduce the radius to like say 10, and I'll increase the height to like 500. And now remember, we have to change the axis, so I'll make it plus z. All right, and I'll create, so I'll call this, okay, this stick main. So the long one will be the main, and I'll hold control to click and drag it to create a duplicate it, right? And I'll call this one ring. So that's going to be the golden part of our stick here, the golden part, right? So with this one, I'll actually increase the radius a bit to like say 10.5, and I'll increase the reduce the height to 25 also. Let me see, and I'll move it up to the tip a bit. So somewhere here will be fine. Let's say maybe 245 will be fine, right? So this one will be the ring. Then I'll hold control again, click and drag it to create another copy, and I'll call this one the tip. All right, and now this one I'll reduce the height to like say maybe 10 will be fine. In fact, the ring, I'll reduce the height of the ring to maybe 15 or 18. Then I'll move the tip a little bit upwards, move this one back a bit. So I'll move the ring back a bit. Yeah, I think it's fine. And I'll select the ring and the tip. I'll come to the caps, and I'll enable fillet so that it gives it a bit of smoothness in here. So I'll the fillets radius, I'll make it 1 for now, and maybe increase the segment to maybe 4 or 5, right? In fact, the tip, I'll reduce the radius as well. I'll make it like say 10.2, I think, which is fine. And now let's move it back a little bit. Okay, somewhere here will be fine. All right, the tip, I can actually come into and try and increase the tip a little bit more. So I'll make the cap radius of the tip like 1.5. So that's basically how we create our stick, right? But you can see the stick, it sort of tapers when you actually, let's look at the original one. Where is it? you can see it gets a bit thinner when it's getting to the tip. So we will use a taper deformer. So I'll come to deform this and I'll bring in a taper, right? And now you can see our deformer. So I'll rotate it. In fact, let me first of all do the tip, and you can see where it's trying to. So I'll rotate it 90 degrees in here. Then now make it a bit taller in terms of the height. Somewhere here, we do this, reduce this a bit more, and now I'll create a null object and put all of them in the null object. So you can see now it's tapering the tip like a bit. All right, so you can actually go in there and make sure the taper is a little bit closer to it. Now increase the taper a little bit more. So now we basically created the stick part. The next thing is we are going to put it in a clone. So all we have to do is to come to Mograph Effector, Mograph clones, and I'll make it a child of the clone. And I can see you have multiple copies. Let me go ahead and hide the taper. I don't want to see all of them. So we have multiple copies of the clones. We, instead of the mode, we will change it from grid and put it to radial. So you can see now it's created a radial one. If I should increase the radius, you can see what we have. So let me actually increase it to, like, say the count to 10, and I'll maybe reduce the radius a bit to, like, say 150 for now. So now let's go ahead and add our target effector. So I'll come in here, I come to Mograph effectors, and I'll add my target effector, Mograph target effector, and you can see it has flipped our object. If I should disable, you can see it has flipped it. You know what, let's create a material. So I'll create a material, I'll make it red so that we see the tip, we see the difference. So, and I'll put it on the main stick so that we see the difference between the main and the tip, right? So if I should disable, you can see how the tip, and immediately I enable the target, everything flips, right? So now we need to create our object that we want it to target. That's why we create our sphere, which is going to be our, like, the ball. So I'll create a sphere, and I'll reduce the sphere radius to maybe 30, which is, I think, is fine. Right now we want the sphere to be circling around, so we want it to follow a path, and what the path we want to follow is a circle. So I'll create a circle, I'll change the axis from XY to XZ or XZ, and I'll move it upwards a bit, right, to say 280. Right now I'll put the sphere in a null object. I'll create a null object, and I'll put the sphere in the null object. Now I'll right click on the null object and come to animation tags. I'll add align to spline. So what you are going to do is you align the null object to the spline, which is the circle. So we select the align to spline tag, and you drag in our circle, and you can see now the sphere has moved up to the circle. So if you see, it's now moving like right on the circle. So if on the align to spline tag, if I should move the position, you can see the circle is moving around it, right? So we are good. So now in the target object, you can see the object we want it to target is the circle. So the target object selected, I come to effectors, and I'll drag in the sphere, and you can see now it's now it's looking at the sphere for now. I'll actually move the circle down a bit. Let me bring it down a little bit to say 270, and maybe come into the clones, use this one to maybe 140, reduce it by 10. Oh, actually 140, not 1004. Yeah, a little bit. Maybe I can actually push the whole thing up this way, actually, and push it a bit more. You know what, let me hold on for now. So basically we are almost there, so everything is fine. So all we have to do is to animate our align to spline. So I'll select the align to spline, and I'll come to frame 0. Let's increase our frame rate. Set it to 150. I'll come to frame 0. I'll make sure it's 100, and at frame I'll set a keyframe at the position when it's 100%, and I'll put it to come to frame 150, bring it down to 0, and I'll set a keyframe as well. So now if we hit play, you can see it's following our sphere. So let's actually frame our camera. So I'll create a camera, right? And let me go into the settings, and I'll set this one to, like, say 1005 by 1005. We want it to be square shape. So yeah, then I'll zoom in. I'll make sure our camera is zeroed out all angles. I'll zoom in and I'll bring it down a bit. As a matter of fact, I'll actually create a null object. I put the camera in so that, yeah, you can use it to rotate it a bit. So I can actually rotate it somewhere like 5 minus 5%. I'll move my camera up a bit, and now change the camera focal length. I'll do it like let's see, 80, maybe 60 will do. And now let me zoom out a bit more. So let's hit play to see what happens. Now I can see the animation. It slows down here and it continues. So we can come to, actually, we can hit save now, and you see target, call it target for now. I'll hit save, right? So if we come into our animation, go to Windows and come to timeline F-curve, you can see it brings out timeline. You can actually click on this button to bring it if you are using R25, but if you are using an older version, it might not be there. That's why I'm using the Windows. So if I select the position and hit H, it will frame our animation. So now if I select one of the points, Control A to select all of them, and I click on this line, you can see it's now set to linear animation. So now if I hit play, everything will move, the animation will move linearly. Yeah, so we are almost there. So now let's frame our camera properly a bit, and zoom in a little bit more. In fact, the circle, I think the radius of the circle, let's actually reduce the radius of the circle to maybe 110, right? So yeah, this is cool. And now let's zoom in a bit more and bring it down. So if we should hit play, we are almost there. Maybe zoom out a little bit more and bring it down. So yeah, that's basically it. So what's left is now we have to add textures and materials and add light and render it. And you're going to use my 4D standard renderer. So I'll hit Ctrl S and I'll hide the circle. So for now, we assume we are cool with the animation. All right. So what's left is how to add our textures. So the first thing we are going to add is the wooden texture. And that one, you can actually go on Google and look for wooden texture, seamless wooden texture. But if you have Cinema 4D, you can go to the content browser, or if you have R25 or R24, you can go to the asset browser. So I'll come to my asset browser. In my material, I'll look for wood. I'll type wood. You can see we have all these woods. So I'll actually choose the first one. So I'll open my material manager, and I'll drag the first material, which is the ash shader. So that's what's going to be for the main stick. I'll drag and drop it on the main stick, right? And now we are cool. Next is the gold. So with the gold, you are going to use the red material to actually create it. So I'll drag and drop it on the ring, and I'll double click on it to open the texture manager. Then I'll come to the reflect. Let's first of all uncheck color, because you don't need the color. I'll come to the reflectance, and I'll delete the default specular we have here. So now we'll go ahead and add our own reflectance, and I'll add the reflection, legacy reflection, right? I'll hit save, and then The next thing is I'll change the color. Right now the color is set to white, so I'll click on it and I'll set it to, maybe adjust it to something like this for now. Maybe increase it a little bit more. So here we play around with it till we get something we think is cool. So for now, let's assume this is going to be a gold color in here. We are cool with it for now. The next thing is to come to, I think this one's going to be a gold for now. We'll leave it like that as it is for now. We wouldn't touch it much. So that's going to be a gold. The next is the tip. And the tip, let me actually hit save. I use something else, rough rubber. So I check rough and plastic. You see, have this black plastic in here. So this is what I used. So I'll drag and drop it in here as well. And I'll put that one on the tip. So that's going to be the tip. And basically, our materials for the stick is done. So I'll hit Ctrl S to save it. And now I'll hide my assets browser. The next thing is for the ball. So for the ball, I'll select the ball and I'll actually come to it, the attribute manager. I'll increase the segments. You can see it's very jagged. So I'll increase it to like say 72 and it gets a bit smoother. With the ball, what I use is a material I searched for on Google. So you can simply go on Google and search for what I actually searched for was pool ball texture, and this, like, several of them came. So I just took one of them, I just saved it. You can actually save whichever you want. And now I drag and drop it into Cinema 4D architecture. I'll say no, and I have it in here. All I'll do is drag and drop it on the ball, and now my ball is created. I'll hit save and you see, we hit play. You can see the ball is moving, but it's not rotating. So now let's go ahead and set the rotation as well. So I'll select the sphere, come to its coordinates, and I'll set it to I'll set a keyframe here, and at the end I'll set, I think, minus 360 as well on the pitch and the banking, and now I'll set keyframe for them. And if I hit play, and see it's moving, but it's not linear, it's actually a spline. So what I'll do is I'll click on this one and I'll open my timeline for us. I can click on this icon, and you can see I open it and I have my sphere. If I select the two and hit H, it will frame my our spline, and now all the points are selected already. So all I have to do is to click on this particular, but you can see it says linear, and now our animation is linear, right? So I can go back and click on this one again to hide our timeline. If you are not using Cinema 4D R25, you can find the timeline in the Windows. You see timeline, the dope sheet and the FK. You can find it there. So now if I hit play, you can see it's following, it's also rotating as well. So now the next thing is let's actually add reflection to the the ball texture. So I'll double click on it to open it, and in there the reflectance, I'll actually come to I'll add a legacy reflectance again. I'll delete the default one as usual, delete this one, and I'll click on the layer one, which is the legacy one we just added, and I'll probably reduce the reflection to say 50. I'll take off the specular strength that we have in here, and the next is I'll use Fresnel. So I'll use the layer Fresnel that we have here. I'll set it to conductor. Oh, actually, let me set it to dielectric. So we are fine, and it's giving us Fresnel. Maybe I'll increase the Fresnel a bit more to say 3. Yeah, I think we are cool. And now hit save. And now if we play, everything is fine. So now let's actually, what we are left to do is to add light to it. And what you are going to use is you are going to use HDRI. So I'll hit Control Save, and now coming to add HDRI in Cinema 4D, I have to create our sky material. So I'll click on this button here, you can see we have sky. Add our sky to the scene, and now if we hit render, everything is quite flat, so you have to add our HDRI. So to add HDRI, you can search for some on Google as well, on the internet, but we have in the asset browser or content browser, you can find some there. So I'll click on the asset browser and I'll come to HDRI, and so you have all sorts of HDRI. I'll actually bring in this one, the first one I found, right, and I'll put that material on the sky object. Now let me go ahead and hide the content asset browser, and I'll hit save. Now if I hit render again, you can see now it's reflecting our scene and all of that, right? But we don't want to see the HDRI at the background, so what I'll do is I'll right click on it and I'll come to render tags and I'll say compositing. So I'll add compositing, and the compositing attributes I'll say seen by camera, on check it, and now we cannot, if we render, it will not show at the background like it's doing, right? Another thing is you can see, because it's a sky, the blue in it is actually affecting this thing. We can take off the saturation. So to do that, I'll double click on the material and I'll come to the luminance, which is where our texture is. I'll click on this button and bring me down. I'll go to filter, and in what it has done is it has put in this image in a filter. So if I click on it, I can see we have some attributes. So what you can do is the saturation can bring it to -100, and now it makes it it tints it black to black and white, right? So now it wouldn't, the blue if effect in it, color in it wouldn't be affecting our scene. So now if we hit render again, you can see we are almost there. The next thing is this just rendering. I mean, I think the wooden texture here is not showing well, so let me actually scale it a bit. So I'll select it and I'll come to UV. Now we are just using the default UV of the cylinder, so it's not, there's no need. So I'll actually increase it to like the U to like say 1000 by 1000. So that's, let's render again. I think it's okay. It's okay for now. Right, so what we are left to do is to add, like, now it's the reflection, everything is showing, but it's not actually lighting our scene. And for our HDR to light our scene, you need to add global illumination. So let me first of all select the HDRI. I think it's too bright. Reduce the brightness, and to reduce the brightness of the HDR, just reduce the strength here, of the mix strength here, but make sure the brightness is set to 0 so that the whites in here wouldn't be lightening our scene. So I'll reduce it to like say 80. Right, I'll check off the reflectance, not necessary, and let's actually come to our render settings, effects, and add global illumination. All right, and now let's hit render to see what we have. And now you can see our scene is rendered and we are very cool with it, you know. So here, from here going, like when it comes to other things, all we have to do is to tweak in colors, and maybe if you don't like the way the gold look, you can actually play around with it to get how you want it, especially with the color and stuff like that. Maybe with the reflectance, you can go in and shape it to your taste and everything. All right, so that's basically how the whole thing was set up using Cinema 4D. And I hope you learned a thing or two in here. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.